going off topic.
Off topic?
You really off topic right now. Yo, you way off topic. How is it that everybody's over here and you way over there off topic?
Hey, yo, what up, y'all? This is Brother Omawale back with another going off topic to start the year off with. We starting off black and powerful this year. We got my Philly brethren in the building. I got my good brother Gabe. Do I just call you Gabe? Do I call you Gabriel Bryant? Like, how you?
Hey, Gabe is cool. You know that.
all right. So, you know, this is for so you Gabe the activist, but you
No
Gabriel Bryant the producer.
No question.
You're doing big things. So listen, usually what I like to do is I like to ask people just to introduce themselves to the platform when I bring them on. But, you know, you're a long-term friend, bro. So what I want to do is I just want to personally introduce this brother, right? You know, Nori got this thing that he do on Drink Champs when he bring folks on. He like to give them their flowers, right? So I guess this would be my version of giving you your flowers, just black man to black man. I've known Gabe. I think I met Gabe in October of 2015.
Yeah.
I was hopping off a flight from Toronto. I literally left from the airport on a Friday and drove straight to RBG Fridays.
Wow.
I was seeing this movement that was happening online. I'm like, yo, what is this? Right? So I hopped off an airplane, drove straight to RBG Fridays, and I met Brother Gabe. So Brother Gabe has started this movement in the city where he had the folks, young folks, our people coming together on Broad and Girard to blacktivate, right? To pump that RBG flag, to be out in the community, to be providing resources, right? And that was my first connection with this brother. And this brother is a quiet giant. You understand what I'm saying? He does so much in the city. He's extremely consistent across all fronts, man. And you're just a man of respect. So I just want to take a moment just to put some.
Thank you, brother. Yes, sir. Appreciate those flowers. And I just want to say that it's been a beautiful connection since we've met over the years, seeing your, you know, just phenomenal work, you know, not only in the streets, but also here in this media space. So shout out to you as well, just for all the work that you're doing to raise the awareness of our people, man. So salute to you, brother.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate that, you know, and, you know, 2023, I'm really trying to just continue to do big things with the media because you know, we Garveyites. And
that's right.
One of the things that I was reading when I was reading Tony Martin's book, Race First, Garvey was very clear. He said, you know, when I got it in my mind, when I had schemes to do work for the upliftment of my people, for the upliftment of my race, I knew that the first thing I needed to create was a media outlet.
Right.
He literally wrote this.
Right.
So he said, I created the Negro world so I would have a vehicle to introduce my programs to the masses of our people. So understanding the importance that media and production and propaganda, right? Garvey was big on propaganda.
Huge on propaganda.
Right? The way that the role that this plays, right, in our development and our organizing and any of our activist efforts is essential, right? So, you know, you a media guy as well. So let me ask you this. Tell me about your introduction to Philly, because I recall in conversation, I think you said you're originally from Brooklyn.
Born and raised.
So walk me back, because you've been in Philly working for a minute. So
I've been here doing hopefully some work to contribute, man, to the cause and to the people. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, East New York, Brooklyn to be exact. People that know East New York know this right next to Brownsville, pretty much adjacent to it, that neighborhood. My mom and dad are still in Brooklyn, you know what I mean? My mom's is in Star City. My dad is in Flatbush, Dickens Park area. I got a brother in Queens, you know what I mean? But, you know, the reality is that since I was a child, Brother Omawale, I've been coming to Philadelphia because I have a lot of aunts and uncles here, cousins here. My grandma, before she passed, was living here. And so I can remember as far back as being a child, man, 5, 6, 7 years old, coming to Philadelphia for gatherings, for, you know, to see my cousins, you know, having my cousins in Philadelphia come here to Brooklyn. So there always was that connection since I was a youngster. You know, I remember going to my aunt's, you know, wedding when I was like 12 years old here in Philly, out in Frankfurt. So, you know, running down Hunting Park where most of my family's from. So when I made the transition to Philly after undergrad it wasn't that much of a different adjustment because I had been coming here for so long. You know, in many ways, at the time, New York was still home, obviously, because that's where my family's from and is. But I knew upon coming to Philly, being around the people, that I didn't want to just come here and just take away. You know, this is a city that I had been coming to for many years and had a lot of memories already. And so I just wanted to help out once I knew that I had a level of awareness about Black folks and our movement for liberation. I just wanted to tap in where I could.
Got you. Where'd you go to undergrad?
I was at Penn State University, which also speaks to it because at Penn State University, out in so-called Happy Valley, it's really unhappy valley, it's sad valley for real. But in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, most of the Black students who are there, you'll find themselves from Philadelphia and then from like Pittsburgh and New York, right? And so what happens is there's like a lot of overlap with friendships, and we're all in the dorms together. And because the Black student population is so small on this 41,000 student campus, we tend to all connect with each other. We go into each other's homes. We're getting rides back home in the same cars because everybody's broke, right? We're on the same buses back home, things of that nature. So you get to forge these great relationships. And I remember some of the guys being from Philly, but also I suppose we're again Pittsburgh. A lot of my guys were from Pittsburgh and throughout Pennsylvania. And so when it came to looking at the next steps after I graduated, like everybody else, we kind of look for jobs, and I'm in New York, I'm in Philly, I'm in all over DC for a little bit. But Philly was a place that I found a great opportunity. And so I've been here ever since.
Nice. What was that opportunity that you started with?
Yeah, it was an internship, which actually started into it's actually a joke because it went from an internship into me being staff, actually working in West Philly for Senator Vincent Hughes. So at the time when I was undergrad, I was in two major organizations. I was in the major of I was in our Black Caucus, which is like our Black student union. And also I was the president of our Commonwealth student governments as well. And so I was doing both the student government thing and the Black Caucus thing all at the same time. And so that's where people, by the way, see a lot of the merging of my ideas. This from like back then. And so I'm 22 years old now, and here I am now at 46 and Market, doing a lot of the community affairs and constituent services work with Senator Hughes.
Got you. Shout out to Senator Hughes. Gotta give him a round of applause for giving you that opportunity.
Yeah.
I have a strange relationship with the political brass.
As you should, as we should.
You know what I mean? Because so growing up, as a young knucklehead,
right?
I remember getting into some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I don't know if the juvenile court is still down on Vine Street, 18th and Vine.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So long story short, I caught a little juvenile case for some narcotics or whatever. And who was it? It was my mom. My mom was always my biggest advocate. Like she was always like really cleaning up messes that had I had to deal with like on my own. Like I'd probably be away for some time, right? Whether it be school or crime, whatever. But long story short, I caught a little meatball case or whatever for some drug possession with intent to deliver. And she goes down to Curtis Thomas, who was our state rep at the time.
Right there, Broad and Gerard, right? I think that was
right on Broad and Gerard, because I went to William Penn as well, or so. That was my neighborhood school. But she go to Curtis Thomas and she tell him, but no, listen, this is why I say I got a strange kind of.
Go ahead.
Because long story short, he showed up to court on my behalf.
Oh, okay.
And when, it was one of them joints where it was like, they told me if I plead guilty, they would give me something called delayed adjudication. Basically, I take a plea, but I don't get found guilty. They essentially they watch me for 2 months. And if, I don't do anything in the 2 months, then
right.
I just throw the case away or whatever. But long story short, he showed up to court and he just gave a nod to the judge. And, me and my homie, who's dead now, passed away, rest in peace, Sheen.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, we both just got off the case just like that. So it showed me like, okay, that, you know, the power of that. But then when I grew, because you mentioned Vincent Hughes,
right,
I was involved with the brothers who came out of that Father's Day Raleigh committee and started United for a Better Philadelphia. So Bilal Qayyum, Malik Aziz, rest in peace. Malik was a significant mentor.
Rest in peace to Brother Malik,
to me, right?
I first met Malik Aziz in Senator Hughes' office because he's always come through the office,
So I'm giving you the connection here. This is what I'm saying. I have a strange relationship with it because when you mention these names, I know these names. So Malik, I also met through my mom. My mom was in community college with Malik's wife.
Wow.
And this is when I'm still on my knucklehead shit. So, you know, she's talking to Malik's wife who just came home. I think his wife did like 10 years in prison.
Yeah, she did.
Weed charge or something like that. And she was like, well, you should have him talk to my husband. You know, Malik, you know, serious dude. So I go and meet Malik at a Raleigh. I remember like he gave me like $10 so I could like get back home with some shit like this. But long story short,
that's Malik.
He put me under his wing. And he brought me into the organization, Men United for a Better Philadelphia. He got me a job working in the school district, right, for the city of Philadelphia.
Right.
And that's how I met like a lot of like the politicians, like the Vincent Hughes and folks like that. But it's also how I saw my first experience of some of just the
nastiness.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I mean by like I have a very interesting relationship with the
No, I'm the same way, brother, because I was in it. So, you know, I saw it. But one thing I tell people all the time is that when you look at history, is, you know, there's a season for everything, right? And there's a reason why I was in it. And the key word is was.
Yeah.
Right? So you're able to see it, but I didn't stay in it, right? And, you know, to the sense that in many ways you see what you're able to do, you see what you're able to accomplish. But you also see some of the pitfalls and you also see some of the setbacks that are actually inherent to the position, right? I mean, it's not that it's because you can't or a willingness. It's literally embedded in the role, in the ways to, you know, maintain status quo to a certain extent. So I think that we have some good people. I'm always reminded of, you know, that Redman song, I'll Be That, right? It's like everybody can't do it, but if you feel as though you can do it, all right, be that, right? You know, so we have, I think, good people in these roles, but it's the role, I think, in of itself that actually is the whole tragic part of it, right? Because we could all identify individuals who this council person or that state rep or that state senator are good people. So that's wherever they work, they're going to bring good things to it. But I think that sometimes we have to look deeper into the role in of itself and say actually what's happening because the role actually is oppressive.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, my feelings, it turns my stomach when I think about, I'm serious, bro. Like just the level of.
We gotta talk about it offline.
Yeah, you know, I'm not gonna go in right now, but yeah, man. Like I said, that experience, it was a necessary education. Like it was the best.
Always education.
It was the best political education I could have ever received, because now like the lens that I have when I look around and I see the way that the plays operate, I'm like, listen, I know what that is already. I've seen the behind the scenes of it. You know what I mean? At a young age, I was like, and this was before like Instagram or before you could get before you could get clout for being like an activist. Like I'm, you know, 20, 21 years old, like the youngest person. I'm literally the youngest person in the group and Men United for a Better Philadelphia. Everybody else is OGs who
all elders,
you know, been in prison for 10, 15 years. Like I think the next youngest person was my brother from down South Philly, my brother Hassan. He had got arrested when he was 17 for homicide. And he came home when he was 36. So he was the next youngest person. And me at 21, I'm running around with all these older men that understand the game, understand the politics, they're navigating, and I'm seeing this shit. I'm like, I know. It drove. To be honest, like I was so deeply vested in this particular issue, just around like the homicides and the shootings. That, like it sent me on tilt. You know what I mean? I had my first my first battle with mental illness. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I got involuntarily, or is it involuntarily 302?
Involuntarily.
Yeah, like the first one was involuntarily, the
Mm.
second was voluntary, but it was a situation where there was a point where I was so emotionally vested in the work
Right.
that, like, I don't know, it was almost like it was a combination of like the energy that you're pouring out with almost like a savior or like Jesus complex, like you feeling like, you come into, like, it was a weird thing, like, looking back on it. But long story short, man, like, that work is something, that is still triggering to me. People always ask, like, well, why aren't we talking about like the homicides and all the shoot? Like, you live in Philly, why aren't we talking about that? And I'm like, well, for one, I'm not just going to talk about it if I can't like do anything about it. But I understand the politics behind it, and it upsets me. So I don't.
Yeah. So I'll say this, man. A couple of things. One is that, and you don't understand this, more than anybody, brother Omowale. Like, right now we're working to build power, and that's always been our fight. Unfortunately, I would argue that many in the Black mixed leadership class have fought not to build power, but to maintain a certain type of power.
Yeah.
They're not really trying to build power that's for the collective, or power that's going to be in the interests of, the average working, person of African descent. Their interest is, how do I maintain myself and my power? And so what we've tried to do over the years is look at how do we build power from the community on up rather than from the top down. And how do we build that sense of leadership and self-worth so that people understand that, as Ella Baker said, strong people don't need strong leaders. How do we build up strong people? But I think that power clash, though, is always going to be a challenge, because in many ways, we also understand that there are issues, like you just said, there are issues in the courts, there are issues in legislation that still are going to affect us, whether we engage with it or not, right? And so then we got to sit down and figure that strategy out, right? Like, how do we build enough power to impact that so that our demands become commands when it comes to policy and legislation as well?
Yeah, so speak to me about that, because there's a lot of disparate politics that exists, right? There's a political landmine, I like to say, you have to navigate when you're trying to do work at the grassroots level.
Mm-hmm.
You've been navigating it for more than a decade. Tell me about that. Speak to those challenges, but also speak to the mindset or the skill set that you've had to develop in order to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I moved to Philly August 2001. I had our organization, Sankofa Community Empowerment, up by March 2002. So it took me about 7 or so months to galvanize this organization. And really, this was an organization that started when I was a student, right, an undergrad. Like, we had created this Sankofa organization space that was an affinity space so that Black folks on campus could gather, build, discuss our issues, but also do work as well. I don't want to get into the whole long of that, because that could be a whole 2-3 shows. But I'll say that when many of the seniors graduated, after a standoff with the university and a sit-in and all kinds of other issues, some of us went to Philly, like myself. Some of us went to Pittsburgh. Some went to New York. And we said, let's turn this to an actual organization that connects Black people on campuses with community to do work. And so for like the first maybe like 5 months, again, shout out to PCO, People's Community Organization, which was then founded by our brother Tommy. So everybody here knows Brother Tommy from the North Philly Peace Park. I actually first met the folks in PCO through a brother who's now since passed on, Brother Salah Nkrumah, may he rest in peace. He was always up on campus doing work and in the community doing work. I probably saw him first and then began going to sessions. That's where I met Brother Rel Styles and Brother Tommy and many others who were in PCO, People's Community Organization, who met actually at the now gone, but a real hub in Philadelphia called the Pearl of Africa, which was a bookstore at 624 South Street. And they met on the second floor. And through them, I began to just look at the landscape. And that was when after that, I met Brother Khalid, Brother Khamed with the Republic of New Africa. So I met those brothers, those elders. Then I went over to the UNIA, because I was like, wait a minute, y'all got a UNIA here? I'm like, whoa. So that was like within 3 months, I'm at the UNIA. I'm like, November. I remember because it was right before, I'll never forget, because right before so-called Thanksgiving and Bob Raymond Battle was talking about Thanksgiving, going so hard about it. I'll never forget that moment. I was like, wow, this is the UNIA. I'm looking around all these pictures and walls. I'm only 22 years old. Just kind of seeing it all for the first time in Philadelphia. I knew about the UNIA, but didn't know its history in the city. And so I started going to UNIA meetings. And so at this point, I'm looking at all the different organizations and what they're doing. Like, what are they doing differently? So to make a long story short, I started our chapter of St. Kofi Community Empowerment in March of 2002. And we really went strong for like a good maybe 15 years till about 2017. And it's been really where I met and been connected with all the other work that I've done over the years, as far as police brutality work, the work I've done around political prisoners, with, whether it's Mumia Abu-Jamal or the MOVE organization, and a lot of my other just community development work has kind of all came from that first run of meet people and seeing what the landscape was in Philly.
Yeah, so you were at the UNIA when Umar was there.
Yeah. I remember when he first started coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when he was brother Umar before he was out the Umar. I remember the first time we spoke at at some school. I forgot what school. We were at Strawberry Mansion High School. I think he and I were both on the panel when he first began talking about how he was going to start his doctoral program. Oh yeah, I've known. Matter of fact, we had a program in Haley Library. I still had it on DVD. When this goes back to show you how old this is. I still had it on DVD. We did a program on education. It was December of 2003, and it was Umar, but Dr. Umar at the time on this panel. First, to pitch to my brother Vino, who was working at the time in the school district. A couple other folks. Actually, matter of fact, it was co-moderated by Sister Asasia, who at the time was a student who now is the People's Midwife. People who know Sasia Muhammad in Germantown. But yeah, it was a great time. But the funny moment I always remember about that was that we put Umar on first. And he went for like the first. I was like, okay, we probably should have ended with Umar because he just did the whole thing. Like, we probably didn't need all the other panelists. But shout out to him, man. Yeah, I've known him since then. Meeting him first though at the UNIA.
Yeah. Shout out to Umar. It's funny. I found out like a lot of like strange connections with Umar because, all right, so when I was president over at the UNIA back in 2016 and 2017. Mm-hmm. It was a very short-lived, situation. But before I took the role, I was doing research. Like you got to do your diligence, right? On any. So as I'm doing research just on the chapter on the history, one of the first things I come across is Umar's resignation letter from the UNIA.
I remember that.
Yeah, so when he was again, brother Umar Abdullah Johnson, young Malcolm X. I think that's how he ended the letter as young Malcolm X. But when I was reading it, I think he had just gotten back from Ghana or something like that for the first time, but he was expressing this level of frustration with the eldership or the oldership, whatever we want to call it, that wouldn't allow the organization and the younger workers coming into the organization to actually take the reins to lead, so to speak, right? And I was like, this is, interesting. And for,
I was around for all of that.
Listen, so I'm reading it and I'm like, well, I'm gonna take some of it with a grain of salt because I wasn't there and I know personalities, how things and egos can collide, right? No question. But I got into the organization. I think Umar was the first vice president. I was the male president of the same chapter. And as I'm going through and trying to move things and putting a team in place, I ran into the same situation that Umar was talking about, like while he was there. Like, so my question for you is, as an organizer, like, how do you navigate that intergenerational piece when some of the folks before, how you talked about with the politicians, they're not vested in building power, they want to hold on to a certain type of power. You find that in some of our Black organizations,
no question about it.
Well, so how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I remember specifically Dr. Umar at the time when he was really trying to create that space. He formed what was called the Marcus Garvey Action Committee, MGAC. It was like a wing within the UNIA. and it was basically like the youth wing space, right? And so many of us were a part of it. He led it, and he sort of had a great vision, I thought, to bring programs to it, right? So I remember I worked with the drama. It was like a drama entertainment committee. I think it was kind of like arts committee. We had to push back because we were supposed to have been doing a play on one of Garvey's plays. By the way, people need to do Garvey's plays and read Garvey's plays, by the way. We wound up having to push it back for a lot of reasons. A lot of people that we had that was signed up to do it couldn't do it because life issues were going on. And finally, we wound up doing it one Sunday. We did like a abbreviated, altered version of it, right? One of the weeks, about probably like 2 months after how we should have did it because of some issues. But that moment in time definitely taught a lot of us who were engaged at the time some of the challenges, because again, we all revere our elders, right? At the end of the day, I'll always have, Bobby Redmond Battle, in my heart, you know what I mean? As far as the work that he did as President General, brothers like Johnny Gossett, may he rest in peace. So many of the other brothers who we knew were there, always kept the doors open. I think that, what I've learned is, and I've talked about this with some of my elders here in Philly, is like, it's okay to take a step back, right? Like, it's okay to take a step back and to not be scared or feel threatened by these young people who have ideas and vibrancy and energy and new ideas, which for some reason you're afraid of. And it takes deliberate conversation with them, right? And it takes really kind of saying, look, man, we got to sit. We're not going to meet actually in this hall, like in the hall. We're going to meet, maybe go for a walk, maybe meet somewhere else, get a bite to eat, and express our concerns in a real way, man to man, and really kind of do it that way. I think, some of it also takes just doing the work. I think in many ways, one of the things that I think Umar did well in that moment was just do the work with the MGAC. It was just I'm not sure the politics of whether or not it was approved or approvals and all that kind of stuff. But I think just saying, yo, man, we're going to have this youth wing and we're going to do it this way. These are our objectives. I think is actually quite intelligent. For me, what I've had to do is, because now, as I get up, older, I'm seeing some of the younger guys, right, who call me elder, right? I'm at that age now, Brother Mowale. And so they're like, yo, Brother Gabe, can I do that? I'm like, can you? You better do it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need my approval for anything, and I think that's what I'm trying to do now is make sure that, like, for instance, a lot of my work, and I think a lot of the success has come from this, because the number one question I get, Brother Mowale, more than anything when it comes to people who ask me questions is, hey, can you give me so-and-so number? Can you give me so-and-so number? Can you give me so-and-so number? I got the roll of my in the cell phone. And I never give somebody's number without telling them first and asking. But I'm at a point now, though, where I'm just like, yo, there's no point in me hoarding this information, right? Like, there's no point in me hoarding these relationships. Like, no, like, these relationships are made to be built. Obviously, I have it because I worked towards it for so many years. At this point, decades for some of these folks. But that doesn't mean that I have ownership of that relationship. So if that means that I can connect these folks to somebody else who can do the work differently or even better than me, let's do it, man. Let's not hold on to this stuff and act like, because the question that we keep asking ourselves is, are we free? And if the answer is no, then damn it, keep working, right? And so I guess that's the way I look at it, man.
All right, let's take a quick, real quick. Let me. Right, because I think that we've done a good job of at least scratching the surface of the first leg of the journey. There's one piece, my alma mater. I'm a graduate of William Penn High School, and I was a member of the Save the William Penn High School committee. That's the piece I said I should have brought up, because back, and I think this is when I was still on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. Well, I'm on Facebook as Omowale Africa now. Right. I got that account like a year and a half ago. But when I was actually under my government name, still on Facebook, way back in the day, I saw the Save the William Penn situation, and I never even knew that you were involved with that. So we actually met, and I'm like, yeah, and I told you about what my William Penn connection, the land grab that's happening.
That's right.
In North Philly, and that the politicians are aiding and abetting. Not just the politicians, but also some central figures. In North
Every time I walk past that area of Broad Street, man, I just get sick to my stomach, man, because I just remember everything that was in that building. I remember all the meetings that we had in that auditorium, meeting. I'm William Penn class of 83. I'm William Penn class of 91. I'm William Penn class of 2004. I mean, we met so many people over those months and those meetings, man. And like you said, so many promises made. You know, just the fact that y'all had that amazing pool in the building, and then you had all these amenities in the building that could have been utilized for our benefit. Now it's just like history.
Yeah. I was William Penn class of 2001. So it's like it's crazy even saying that. It's like 20 years ago, you know,
right?
High school graduate, 21 years ago.
21 years, yeah.
So it's like just a crazy situation. But no, I want to, I want to transition to this next leg of your work. You've been incredibly active, consistent in the work to bring home our political.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right? Yes, sir. Free them all. Free them all.
Free them all. So I know it's funny. I got on Facebook today, and I got a reminder that last year it was I had shared a post that I think y'all sent to me for Russell Maroon Schultz. Bring home Maroon.
That's right.
For the high and rest in peace. Rest in
power to him. Yes, indeed.
To the elder. But like I was like, damn, y'all, because I support in nominal ways, but I always want to respect this dude. So I don't want to say we, brought him home, but because like I'm not included in the same way that you included, right? The work that you are consistently doing on behalf of Mumia Abu-Jamal. I mean, let me just give you a round of applause for that. I know Mutulu. That's
welcome home, Dr. Mutulu Shakur.
Welcome home to Mutulu Shakur. Speak to me about this work, but can you differentiate between a political prisoner and a prisoner of war? Like,
no question.
Are they the same?
Some may use them interchangeably, but I do use them separate. For me, a political prisoner is somebody who's been in prison or incarcerated due to their political beliefs, due to their political ideas, due to the nature of their ideas, which threatens, the state, threatens status quo, threatens, just the way that the world, moves on, as it were. For me, prisoners of war is a bit different because we're talking about those brothers and sisters and family members of ours who participated in some pretty explicit wartime strategy and activity, right? So it's one thing to be arrested because you were, there because you gave some rousing speeches. And that's powerful too, by the way. It's some rousing organizing. It's another thing to identify those folks of ours who are in like war with the police, war with the feds, war with the government, so it's slight difference. But you might find folks that use them also interchangeably, depending on the person and their politics.
Got you. All right, brother. I appreciate that. All right. Let's speak about that. The work to bring home our political prisoners and prisoners.
Yeah. I always start here, man. As the hip hop head that I am, the first time I heard Mumia's name was in '95 off the KRS-One album called KRS-One. It's a song called Free Mumia. It was him, KRS-One featuring Channel Live, right? So I'm like, and at the time, I'm like, who's Mumia? I didn't even know. I think I might have heard his name a little bit, like in the ether, like, just kind of being a Black person living on the East Coast and somewhat political. But the song was okay, and it made me do a little research. Obviously, back then, there was no cell phone, no Google. So I had to, make conversations happen. Fast forward 4 years later, I'm at Penn State University, and our team members with the Black Caucus, with some other groups, but Ramona Africa to speak. This is October of '99, so our fall semester, that fall semester of '99. I'll never forget it. And she spoke in our Heritage Hall. Blew my mind, brother. I'm like, I've always been 6'4", 6'5", right? So I see this tiny little person, 5 feet, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, whatever Ramona is, come in there. And again, it also was about over 23 years ago. So she was still, she had a lot of fire, you know what I mean? Locks just all everywhere. And she told us the MOVE story, the Mumia Abu-Jamal story, and it just blew my mind. And I told her then, when she was leaving, I introduced myself. I said, when I get out of, when I graduate, I'm going to be committed to the work to free, your family in Mumia Abu-Jamal. I told her this. And we talk about that all the time, that visit. She says, Gabe, I still remember that visit at Penn State. I don't think she remembers our conversation entirely, but I was like, I'm committed. At that point in time, I was 20 years old. It was in my junior year. So I'm not going to do it. And I graduated. I didn't know I'd be in Philly. And so quiet as it's kept, I'm in Philly a month. Like I said, I get here August. I went to my first, I always say this, I got to my first Mumia rally. Literally, it was a month after 9/11. It was like October in the street. I'll never forget it because we was all around City Hall and it was like thousands of people. And because I think also because of the post 9/11 energy, it was like people were just ready to just be out talking about these issues. But yeah, it's a powerful rally. I saw them again. I was like, wow, I'm a Pam again. I ain't seen Pam. And so then I began to see Pam more and more and more also. Because believe it or not, they actually had an office. This is how things are so intertwined, brother. Move and the Mumia work had an office in the same building of Senator Hughes' office. Like, you can't make this up.
Yeah.
So like we were on the main floor and the fourth floor. My office was on the first floor, and they were up on the fifth floor, which is actually interesting because it was like not only Blue was up there, but them. And so Pam would come down all the time. She would come down, like and my funny story about Mom Pam is like, hey, brother, can I get some flyers done? I'm like, sure. I'm thinking she's gonna get people like 100 flyers. She was like, all right, I need 2,000 today. So I'm trying to like look both ways, get like reams of paper. You know what I'm saying? But more importantly, though, we built a really huge bond, man. And from there, it's like, again, 2001, 02, she just began inviting me to sessions and meetings. And from there, we kind of go, we just got tight. We've been tight ever since. I think what strikes me, though, is two things. One is I have an uncle, right? So we always say the personal is political, the political is personal. I have an uncle who's been down serving life in prison since 93. This is my mom's younger brother, one of her younger brothers, and I've understood just the reality of having a loved one who's serving life in prison, the work done to like support and understand what that means in the family. But then also just in my political development, I understood that, it's almost treasonous to allow our prisoners of war, our political prisoners, to languish in the cage, and we do nothing about it.
Not almost.
Huh?
It's not almost. You don't get.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like
it is treasonous.
It's treasonous. It's
Yeah.
treasonous. It's
Yeah.
treasonous. And in many ways, it's not even disrespectful because that's too light of a word. It's treasonous. I use that word explicitly because we're talking about people who gave the ultimate sacrifice, man. When it comes to and living in a time period of war. We talk about war often, right? You and I and many others who are in this work about war, man, and wartime. But they really did work in the wartime where the actual war, the sacrifice, and the consequences were quite accelerated.
The stakes were higher.
Stakes were higher, man. And to understand what they tried to do and did do, only for some of them to be caught up, behind these cages. I just think that, how can we pour libation to folks that these people studied, but then don't free the people who did the work and the spirit of those folks that we're paying libation to. So, it always made me feel uncomfortable to be able to sit. And then for me became even more of a fire under me because, again, I'm a Pan-Africanist to the core. I've been to 4 different countries on the continent, 5 different countries in the Caribbean. Whenever I go to Europe, I've been with the Black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, my whole space is African diaspora. And I understood the relevance and importance of political prisoners throughout the whole global African world, right? And so now we see this connection between what's going on with Mumia Abu-Jamal, with political prisoners in Nigeria, political prisoners who are in Ghana, political prisoners who are in other spaces. And now I'm seeing that this work has to be done to free them because in other countries as well, they're saying to themselves, damn it, if you don't do this work, it means everything to our movement, everything to our cause, right? Nelson Mandela, 27 years, and the work that Winnie did, more importantly, to like maintain the work over that time period. It's for me, it's I don't want to say it's insurmountable, but I'll say I just had a deepened level of commitment to it. And I think what made me angry is I'd meet some people who I try to bring into the fold who'd say, well, brother, I ain't trying, these are people in the so-called conscious community. Well, you know what I mean? I don't want to do that work. And we could, maybe another time or this time, we could unpack why I mentioned Pan-Africanism, being in Pan-Africanist spaces and knowing my role in so-called multiracial spaces.
Mm-hmm. No, unpack.
And you know where I'm going with this, brother.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Unpack that.
So there's been so many people. And again, I came into the movement for Movement and Move. That plane was already rolling, mm-hmm. right? As far as infrastructure and everything else. So I stepped into it. And I'd meet brothers and sisters. Brother Gabe, I want to help out, but that's that, I'm like, bro, so what you're telling me is you'd rather these folks who are pretty much all nationalists and Pan-Africans, by the way, who fought for your liberation, you'd rather them languish in a cage with poor food, poor water, poor health, because you feel uncomfortable being in a 30-minute meeting or hour-long Zoom call. That's basically what you're telling me. You're uncomfortable with 30-minute Zoom call with other nations, as opposed to the freeing, which is the agenda. So what you find with me at the end of the day, man, is that I'm all about the ends, man. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows I'm RBG everywhere. Whenever people see, Mumia or move-related, propaganda, you're gonna see RBG on it, right? There's gonna be things that I've tried to associate into the space. We're gonna do libation in the space, like there's just certain things that we're gonna honor, as long as I've been there. And it's not so much about me, but for me, I'm just like, yo, Russell Maroon Schultz understood this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you used to teach the brothers and sisters, or the brothers, it's not the president, these very same things that I'm talking about, right? That we're talking about, right? Whether it's Mumia Abu-Jamal, whether it's Maroon Schultz, may he rest in peace, and all the others. So I just felt a personal sense of agency to keep going when I seen that other folk that I thought would help chose not to.
Yeah. Yeah. What you're talking about, though, it's a reflection of political maturity, political and emotional maturity, right? Because it takes some balance. It takes some spiritual rootedness to really do this work and to do it from a point of clarity and to be so comfortable with self that you get to the point that you don't care what people think. No. You don't care what people say. Your work is going to speak for itself. And like you said, you're focused on the ends. And I'm going to use any tools at my disposal, right? So if that means aligning with other nations, right, in order to get that support. Like I remember the first time I went to like a Move meeting, like you see like the, the white folks, from France that support. But the reality is like when you look around them, I mean, and I want, give a shout out to the Northeast political prisoners.
No question.
Because what Baba Sekou and them are doing is they're making Baba Sekou Odenga, they're making a direct effort to make sure Black people
that's right
come back in, and
that's
because
right.
that particular movement for a while,
that's right,
like has pretty much just been supported by other communities. The white left has been the supporters of that. So Baba Sekou and them are doing with their, Jericho Project has been doing a phenomenal job. But what they're doing, Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition is saying, okay, Black folks, we gotta,
shout out to Brother Karanja, shout out to Brother Jalum Takim, also, from political prisoner, who also is a big part of that work as well.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man, because I talked about like just as a young person when I was 19 and 20, like that sprint, that burnout, and then the mental lapse that occurred from that lack of balance.
Yeah.
Over this, 20-year period for you, how have you maintained the balance and protected yourself mentally? Right. Because we as Black men, bro, like we carry a lot on our chest, and not all the times do we have the outlets or resources to really deal with it. So how have you walked that rope?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think what's been key for me, I mean, just kind of following up on the question about the political prisoner work, is that that is the only multiracial space that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Every other space that I'm in is all Black people, right? And so I know that when I return to my work with St. Cofer Community Empowerment, when I return to my work with the brothers, when I return to my work, with this coalition, that coalition effort, it's all Black people. So I know that in those spaces, I'm in a space that's building towards liberation work that's specific and designed specifically for us, by us, right? In a real concentrated way. That's first and foremost, just for my own sanity. I think also self-care has been a big one. And it's funny because, coming up, man, one thing I do give value to today's younger organizers and newer organizers, is putting a value on self-care. If you would have told me 15 years ago that we'd be taking breaks during the session to focus on healing, I'd have been like, what you talking about? Like, we got to read this book. We got to get to this next chapter. We got to get on the streets. We got to wheat paste this flyer. We got to, it was always the burn, the grind. We got to read every book by J.A. Rogers, every book by Jacob Carruthers, every, Chancellor Williams, the whole canon. We got to know them like we know the Bible, right? Better than the Bible in some cases. But I think that, people began, people began to have the fortune of hindsight. And they saw people begin to burn out. They saw elders begin to be jaded, right? They saw elders begin to be angry and bitter. They saw long time organizers who were still young, but be turned off by the movement because of traumas and all kinds of other dramas and issues that we have in the movement. And so I think in many ways, that healthcare piece and the self-care piece became more of a community care conversation. We began to think differently about how do we restore ourselves? How do we rejuvenate ourselves? How do we make sure that if somebody has to take a break because, their little one's growing up, or so-and-so's pregnant, or so-and-so actually just needs a break because they lost their job, or whatever it is, somebody else has to step up into that work. And being able to, it took me a while to like, even from my own conditioned ways to operate, because I cut my teeth organizing in a specific way. But even as a behavioral health practitioner, I just take a step back and say, you know what, for so-and-so's best way to show up in this space, they have to do that, right? They got to step away, or they got to do their yoga, or be committed to their gym time at night during the meetings, or whatever it is. And that actually is healthier for the movement, man. In many ways, it's healthier for the movement. And so what I began to do, which is more important for me, is like to be able to know when to say no and set boundaries. I think that most folks who know me, know that they can call me very early in the morning and very, very late at night. But I began doing a better job of setting those boundaries and of saying no to projects, because the thing about me is, I know when I'm a part of a project, I want to see it through to its completion. That's just the way I am. That's just the way I've been designed. My makeup is that way. I want to see it through. I don't want to divorce from it. I don't want to take a step back from it. And so I know if I say yes, I'm going to be taking on that labor too. And so I think being able to just learn within myself to say no, but more importantly, because I have this phone again, to do a better job of delegating and saying, you know what, I can't do it, but you know what, brother so-and-so will do a bang up job, man, in my place. Or you know what, sister so-and-so down the way will do an amazing job in my place. And so being able to make those connections so that we're also fostering development of everybody and not just focusing on the one, because I could be taken out of here tomorrow. And then what happens, right? The reality is we got to build an infrastructure so that everybody can step up. You know what I mean? So everybody can play a role. And we're not just looking for Brother Gabe. We're not just waiting for Brother Omawale. We're not waiting for Sister V. We're saying, oh, we can actually do this because we've been trained and taught by them and worked with them to understand how we can contribute in our own way.
Got you. I think there's a lot, man. I know we always there's so much.
I know.
So much I want to unpack.
Yeah, feel free to cut me off too, man. I know if I'm going too long.
No. I'm not gonna cut off your wisdom, bro. I want you to be able to, hopefully this is therapeutic for you, like this opportunity just to talk about some of this stuff.
It is. It is very therapeutic, because I think oftentimes we don't get a chance to, peel back some of these layers that have confronted us for so long. Again, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to activism, when it comes to liberation work. I've certainly seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. More good than bad and ugly, but the bad and ugly nonetheless. And sometimes the bad and ugly can sort of taint or stain whatever work you've accomplished. Sometimes, unfortunately, in some cases, tragically. But for me, what's kept me going is being rooted in truth. But also, when you live in a city like Philadelphia, where the oppression is right outside your door, you can't escape it, man. Like, if you have a certain mindset, the minute that you walk out the door, you see the oppression. You see the food apartheid. You see, the mass violence. You see the lack of self-worth. You see the
land death.
Right. The land, brother, listen. I was the other day talking to some folks in North Philadelphia, man. They call it Brewery Town. It's North Philly, bro. It's Charlottesville. You know what I mean? 25th Street from Girard College all the way down to like past Ridge Avenue. I counted about 30 new construction houses, bro. And and I know that they're not going to be, for us. You know what I mean? And they're trying to extend so-called Brewery Town into Temple Town. So it's going to be just one blob of, you know what I'm saying? It's amazing, man. Yeah, I remember, brother, just real quick story on that point. I was a part of a coalition back in 2009, 10, 11. Matter of fact, I started 2007, actually, sorry. Called BAD, Blacks Against Displacement. And that was an original iteration of black folks, all organizing against the temple stuff going on. And I'll never forget, man, we helped to save, I'll never forget her name, Miss Josephine Myers, 95 years old, lived at 16th in Montgomery. Temple was trying to encroach and buy her house. And we had to build this whole campaign to save her home, man. And it was like some of the most important work that we ever did, because we knew back then, again, 15, 16 years ago, like, Temple's going to try to buy out this whole, like, the plan's already out there. They're going to take over this whole thing. And it was actually Brother Johnny Gossett at the UNA who said, Gabe, y'all doing great work. He said, and this is like, again, he said, this is back then. He said, Gabe, but don't be surprised if, like, in 15 years, despite your great work, this 60 More Avenue is going to look totally different. I said, nah, Brother Johnny, we're gonna make sure. We're going to make sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There just wasn't enough capacity to save everything, because again, going back to the whole thing about building power, we were able to build power to a certain point, but not to the point of combating an entire, city, a deliverable to change.
That's another level of political maturity, right? What Malcolm says of all of our research, right? History of all of our studies, history is best qualified to reward all research. So what history does is, the further you can see back, the further you can see forward, right? And then you can start to really analyze the situation like a general on a battlefield. So you look at our resources, you look at the enemy tactics, and you're like, okay, this is a battle where I need to commit my resources to, because this is where we can have a win, or this is where I need to be thinking. Like, it's like you start to really just start thinking about battle tactics in terms of where we can win and where we can establish power. Because the reality is, we're behind enemy lines, right? So the tactics that we have to, employ or deploy, in order to deploy, in order to get secure some wins. It's crazy, because you mentioned, that area. I remember. And again, this is back in 2006, 2007, Mama Ruth Burchett. And this is when there was a paper, I think that, I don't know if it was John Street or Michael Nutter at the time. Might have been early Michael Nutter.
Might have been Nutter, yeah.
They were shutting, because what Street did, it was interesting. I remember this all playing out, right? Street was hiring black labor to be a part of the demolition teams, tearing down all the houses, all the vacant houses in North Philly. So, like, when I'm looking back on that, I'm like, oh, this was the early developer play, but we didn't really see like the long term play that was happening here. But after Street, then Nutter came in, and now he's closing down all the rec centers. He's shutting down all the schools. And I remember reading an article about, like, these rec centers being shut down, and it was Mama Ruth Burchett who was covered in the article. And I went to her house, bro.
Wow.
I went to her house. Like I just popped up at her crib. I'm like 19 years old, knocked on her door. I think she lives on 22nd in Montgomery or something like that. And I just knocked on her door, and just to bring things back full circle, right? I go away. So I went to college when I was 23, 24. So I finished at 29, right? I was a late starter. My time in the UNIA told me, okay, while you talking to all these kids, telling them to stay in school, you telling them to go to college.
Right.
You ain't taking your own advice. So eventually I went back to school or whatever, right? Because I can't be telling all these young bulls to stay in school when I just got my little degree or a certificate from William Penn. But so I went away. I went and got my education, came back at 29, and I jumped right back into the community. And one of the first people that I met was Ruth Burchett. Like, I come right back and I said, "Hey, you remember when I and like, yeah, she were, because they were doing the fight against Temple at that time. Right. They were meeting at the Church of the Advocate, on like a weekly basis. The Stadium Stompers. They were fighting.
That's right.
Fighting back against the stadium. All right, let me.
Quickly, brother. Real quick on that point too, because you raised an excellent point. I don't know if this is on your list of questions to ask. One of the questions I'm often asked is, okay, Gabe, we understand that you're, Pan-African in thinking and tactic, building power, building legacy for our people. You're also over here doing the work of like trying to combat what I call some of the, oppression triage, if you will, right? I'm in the emergency room of the work. You know what I'm saying? How do those two things come together? And for me, I'm always of the opinion that I know that everybody can't do that work, right? Or is interested in that work, right? I know that many of my family and folk who are interested in sovereignty, who are interested in maroonage to a certain extent, even perhaps aren't always interested in some of the day-to-day, grind of, dang, so-and-so just got something happened to them. They need help. What can we do about it, right? Because to some people, the idea is we should be always spending our time just building our own, which we always do, as you already know that. And that's it. And anything that takes away from it is like wasted energy. And I've always, for me at least, again, back to that red man, I'll be that. I've always said, okay, I'll be that then. I'll be the guy then, or at least one of the guys who will obviously always stay tapped in with the independent entities and the sovereignty entities. But because we've been water ponds for so hard and so long, somebody has to do that work. Somebody has to do it, because our people are already at, again, disadvantage isn't even the word to use, right? It's disenfranchisement. It's just this period. And so when it comes to somebody saying, well, Brother Gabe, we got this work to do around police brutality. I got a text literally on Monday. The brother texted me, "Hey man, sister got beat up down in Norristown. Now she finds herself in a mental health facility. What can you do?" I got this text on Monday, 5 days ago. And so it's like, what can we do? That's still happening. So we can still be building, but at the end of the day, that's happening. And so for me, again, back to that, I don't want to say there had to be some spirited wing of us that is dedicated also to that work, because the enemy is going to still do what the enemy does. And so somebody has to be constantly and frequently at the forefront, knowing and telling the enemy, no, you can't do what you're trying to do, because at every turn, there's going to be somebody here trying to combat you and work against it and to win against you as well.
Yeah.
And so that's really been sort of how I kind of play into some of my roles, right? It's how do we build independent media? It's going to be how do we build independent institutions? But somebody also has to try to figure out how to do both, or have a week that's doing that. Because if not, I'm telling y'all, we're going to find ourselves in some bad situations. Trust me.
No, for sure. Listen, man, one of the things that I do, and the reason why I'm able to build so many just different relationships, right? I respect people's work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not about to be judging you. If I disagree politically, like, I'm mature enough politically to also understand the necessity of the work that this other person does. You know what I mean? Like, so it was like I learned politically kind of like to live and let live.
No
But
doubt.
it's a very hard thing to do because like our politics, you know, especially as a black man and this present environment,
Yes, sir.
you know, we should really get into that just a little bit
Yes,
because
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
in
sir.
terms of like how the pendulum has swung on black men, like you get this period of this discourse about black men that's happening in the academy through the lens of intersectional feminism, where, you know, they try to, I guess, tell this more complete picture of black manhood, but essentially what it does strategically is it marginalizes black men as, hey, y'all taking up too much conversation, too many of the resources because you're deaf in your situation. By the way, y'all are also oppressors of the community.
Right.
So it's like you black men really have gotten dehumanized in this effort to decenter black men in the race conversation. And a lot of younger black male organizers who came out during this iteration of activism felt that gender antagonism, right?
Sure.
I recall, you know, Brother Peely and Brother Tommy and them when they organized the event for Sandra Bland. And you had black women attacking them, like, hey, brother, like, why are y'all speaking? Like, you know, we ain't here to be y'all muse like back in the day. You know, so it's like this whole narrative that was developed in the academy about black men during the Black Power era being basically misogynistic brutes and, you know, being the faces and black women really doing all the work. Like all of these narratives that and a lot of times don't actually stand up to historical evidence.
Yeah.
You know, but these narratives have been developed and have presented a certain set of attitudes towards black men and about black men that essentially strip the remaining humanity that we have, but it's coming from our counterpart. So how do you, as a black man, in the, you know, I guess we're in the post BLM era, but you were prior to BLM and you saw the shift during
the mix. Sure.
BLM. Like, how do you account for that or deal with that?
Yeah. So I'll say a couple of things. One is I think that I think it's probably going to come out at some point in time, maybe not next year, maybe not in 10 years, but in the same way that we understand certain papers have come out years after a federal or political governmental conspiracy. I won't be surprised if we find out at some point in time that many of these social media influencers or names were feds. I believe it's going to come out at some point in time, and it's going to come out probably in our lifetime. That certain messaging, also on YouTube, was utilized as a way in which to quell, to demystify, to cause, you know, just disjointment in the same way. Basically, it was social media, you know, COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO never ended. It was just operating now in different forms and fashions. And so, you know, those tweets that people share, you know, you might have the name, but nobody really, or I'll say few people actually go, will go into, well, who's that tweet from? We'll post a tweet and we'll see the name right there in the corner, but nobody goes to say, who was that person? What is their relationship to this work? Like, you know, and so I think that there's been a lot of disruption in messaging, 1,000,000% in that. And we're going to find that out, I think sooner than later. That's one. Two is, hey man, it's sad because there was a note last year. It was like it became like a meme, like, black men, here we go, trying to all be podcasts. Please don't be a podcaster. It was like something like that. It was like, black men all of a sudden trying to be podcasts. It was kind of like this energy of all black men want to do is create podcasts. It was like this whole energy going on last summer or spring. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, where did this come from? And it was like the sort of thing of, you know, there's other things to do that y'all should be working on. I should be doing this, that, and the third. I was like, but why is it only the black men getting that message? You know, I was trying to pinpoint that to some people, like, why is only black men being targeted in this conversation? As somebody who's been working with black men and boys for, you know, again, the same amount of time that I've been doing this political work, I know how our boys and our young men feel insecure, how they feel anxious, stressed out. Self-esteem is just in the pits. You know, just their sense of what they can contribute to the world has been degraded because of so much of the community conversation. And certainly all this growth stuff going on YouTube, which you already know full well about it because you've had it, shows about it that have all been good, I think, talking about these challenges and the so-called gender wars. I think there's two things have to happen. One is we do have to, I think, admit to the fact that we have participated in stuff that has been negligent and negative to our women. I think that's first and foremost. There are things that we need to admit to, whether it's the hurt and the harm for some of the women in our community, as far as, violence issues of assaults, issues of battery, issues of neglect. We have to admit to some of that. We do have to admit to that. But I think that we need to also understand that having said that, that doesn't mean that we're oppressors. See, I'm very key about wording and language. And very much, I always take the stance that we're not going to get to our liberation without a concerted stance of our brothers and sisters together, working side by side. It's not going to be a thing where we need, where we're going to be, by us being disjointed, is going to somehow get us freer. No, hell no. What we need to do is admit to some things, fine, but in no way, shape, or form did any Black man ever take Black woman's name, religion, mores, traditions, culture. Those are things that we admit to. Like, for instance, there was this notion of Black men are the white men of the Black people. It's like, no, we're not. Yeah. Like, I disagree completely with that assessment. And there's a historical record to prove such. And so I think that we need to, again, we're battling on multiple fronts, man. But I think what I've had to do personally, though, is think differently about the work that I do with women and girls so that I can figure out, okay, where, and talk with them as well more and say, okay, man, when you're in spaces, do you feel confident in these spaces? Did you feel a way when there was all brothers on the panel? You know what I mean? Or why was there all brothers on the panel? You know what I'm saying? Do you feel a need to have more balance? And so really trying to have more conversation that's constructive as opposed to devolving into the negativity, right? And so thinking about, what can we do? And this is across the spectrum because, again, I don't assume that every Black woman who comes to this space has the same thinking, even though she's a radical or revolutionary or Pan-Africanist. She still might have a range of thoughts on what those things mean to her or to us. And so I like to have those conversations first and kind of see what background they're coming from and then kind of move from there.
All right. I want to share something with you just really quick because I think it was either this week or last week. DJ Twitch,
rest in peace to him and his family.
Almost he passed. I'll say he passed away. DJ Twitch, the suicide situation, and some alarming stats just around Black men suicide. So we're talking about the Black male condition. You talked about that feeling of just having worth and esteem. There was a clip that I had 4 different brothers send this clip to me over the past 2 days, literally sent it to me in my DM, wanting me to see it. And I had to say, yeah, I've seen the clip several times already. Mm-hmm. Each time I've seen it, it's made me upset. But, I want you to weigh in on this right here. Share the screen so you can just take a look. All right, there we go.
Tia is desperate for her son, Ty, to get his life together. He has no job and no goals. Lavinia, what was Ty like as a child?
I'm a single parent. I had to work. This kid would pick up his 2 little sisters, make sure that they eat, make sure that their homework was done. If I had to stay late, he'd make sure they took a bath and put them to sleep. And then he changed.
Ty, you're getting really emotional right now, and so am I. Because
I did change. I'm still that kid.
I haven't seen him in 10 years.
I'm still that kid. I'm tired. I'm depressed. I'm tired.
Okay.
I'm tired. I'm just tired. I'm hurt. I've been through stuff in my life.
Because
that's personal. No, it don't even matter about none of that.
It does matter.
No, listen, it does. But I'm tired. Like I said, I'm depressed. I have personal things going on. Sometimes that
tell us what those personal things are.
That can stop people. Me being depressed.
What are those personal things you're going through? Stop yelling about them and tell us about it.
All right, my personal stuff. I never really had friends. And then when I got around friends, I basically always did exactly. I always had the, like, it's like, I feel like, yeah, you gave me everything, but you kind of gave me too much. But because you gave me too much, my friends were jealous of me. I always had fake friends around me. So that's what I'm saying. It's cool that you did that, but you also got to understand what that brings, what that attracts, Monk. You got to feel me on that. That's what I'm saying.
You got some twisted logic going on here. That's some twisted logic.
I'm just saying it's mental things that can mess with,
Okay,
it's mental things that bothers me in the physical world.
You're telling us that you're depressed.
I don't have motivation. How can I have motivation? Yes. How can I have my motivation when everything is handed to me?
Right. So you're telling us that you're depressed.
Yeah, I'm depressed. I'm always depressed. I'm in a dark spot. I know I'm in a dark spot, and I've been there for a long time.
But Ty, that's still no reason that if you feel that in your dark place, to take that out on your mother.
That's my best friend, yo. That's my best friend.
Listen?
I can't even talk to my mom.
Okay,
yo.
hold up. So has he had a problem with alcohol?
He has a problem with alcohol. He's an alcoholic.
Let me take the screen. I want you to. That
my first time saying that, brother.
Upset me when I saw it, but I just wanted to
what upset you? I would love to hear, not to put you on the spot, but what upset you specifically?
So I think what really frustrated me was the flat out denial of this brother's of like he's pleading and saying like, yo, I've been depressed, right? The lady says, hey, I was a single mother and this was my baby boy. I always had to work and be out of the house. So he had to take on the role of, looking after his, younger sisters. So he was essentially like a dad's son or like a husband son. You know what I mean? So she brought him on the show to talk about like, him not having motivation and not having a job and essentially being a loser. And the brother is tearing up. And I'm thinking about the Twitch situation with the suicide. I'm thinking about a lot of black men who I know who are walking around carrying shit on their chest, who have undiagnosed mental illness, who are battling with, in some cases, they have clinical depression and don't even know it. And they're trying to treat it with all types of alcohol and all types of substances. And then you have a panel of women saying to this brother as he's tearing up, right? Like, why are you treating your mom like this? And like, they're denying like what he's saying about his depression and his emotional state. So when is his humanity centered in this discussion? You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is a young man. So seeing that and seeing him tearing up like that was really frustrating and angering to me. But I think the part of them collectively dismissing what he's saying about the depression, and then when the women are getting on him, his mom is sitting there smiling.
It's hurtful.
And saying, that, he's an alcoholic. And it's like, yo, like, what type of
song is that? Yeah. I mean, they're without having seen what happened before or after, right? I mean, we only watched like 2 minutes of it, but even then, what I saw was just, it's once again part of the reason why black male suicide has increased 200% since 1980, 200%, right? There was a time where, black men and boys had strategies or ways to navigate the stresses. And obviously, mental health always has been compromised, right? We're living in the bastion of white supremacy. But we've seen that increase, I think, because our issues have become compounded, and we found and identified less ways to navigate our stresses. And society in of itself has continued to manipulate and warp our sense of manhood and masculinity to the point that even when those attempts to be soft, right, to be vulnerable, are oftentimes laughed at, jeered at, and not respected, as we saw here. But I mean, I hear it all the time with young people that I work with. They'll say, "Hey, Mr. Gabe, I did what you tried to do," and then my old lady came back and said, "You better man up," and all that kind of stuff. So what am I supposed to do? And it's sad because folk are hurting out here, man. Folk are depressed, they're stressed out. They live, again, the undiagnosed or even like misdiagnosed, right? So you were given a diagnosis at 16, but now come to find out it was actually different. I hated to see it. I hated to hear when I think that was Vivica Fox hosting, when she said, and say it, but don't yell it. Well, sometimes you got to yell. You know what I mean? Because everybody else on that panel was yelling. His voice wasn't going any higher than anybody else's. So that was wrong. And so it hurts me because also what I heard was that his best friend was his mother. And so we know the unique and interesting relationship between mothers and sons, particularly Black mothers and sons. And sometimes some of those tensions that do arise are due to childhood traumas, or the ways that the relationship has been manipulated because, he's not really a son to you. He's almost like a partner to you.
Yeah.
And that shows itself. I mean, in the whole kind of sort of, it's one thing to be best friend, but if that best friendship is destructive, that's not helpful. And he might have grown up a certain way thinking that, this friendly mom of his was a person he could open up to, but I guess couldn't find out actually, she wasn't. And so, and I hate that that's also going to be on television, right? I mean, part of me also is why I tend to step back from some of this, because it's so harmful, man. You see some of this stuff that's so destructive. But those are my thoughts.
All right, bro. We coming up a little over an hour right now, and I want to land the plane, but I want to land it on where we are right now.
Okay.
You've been doing a lot over these last 3 years with media and music.
Mm-hmm.
So you're building, you're building a suite of media products with documentaries that you're doing a fantastic job with. Give you a round of applause for that. But also, the music. You have a creative outlet where you're I listened to the last year. You sent me a video that you did where I think it was 40. That was the name.
43. Yeah, 43.
43. So. When you're like just the lyrics and the content of that particular, I think I sent you a text message back. Like, this is dope, because you got two Black men just talking about their development and, man, speak to me, because I just went to a funeral last weekend of
sorry to hear that. Some my condolences.
Family member that everybody thinks the world of, just phenomenal guy. I mean, he's a street guy, but everybody loves him. You know what I mean? In the streets, people had nothing but this is a stand-up dude, a man of principle, a man of honor, a man that's going to ride to hell with you and back if you call it. Just a protector, just a real stand-up man's man. And this fentanyl, fentanyl put this out here, he's 44 years old.
Wow.
Peak of his life, and it's this shit crushed me. This is my cousin. This is the first one who I played, in a hood basketball league for.
Right.
And it was funny because at the funeral they were talking about, one thing about Nell is he's competitive, but he's a cheater. Don't walk away from the space because he's a cheater. And it just made me think about it. You know what? The first time I ever played in a basketball league, I played for him, but I was a ringer. He had me playing. I think I was I don't know if it was the 12 and under league, and I was probably like 14 at the time. So he had me out there ringing.
Wow.
But no, man, it was just
funny.
Crushed my heart when you said 43. It made me think of my cousin who just buried him last Saturday. So that shit just fucking crushed me. But talk to me, man, about this music and media, because you're doing both.
Music and media. So
documentaries and you're putting out albums. Talk to me. Yeah.
I'm gonna go back in the spirit of Sankofa, and then I'm gonna come forward. When we started our organization in Sankofa, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started it after watching Hollywood Dreamers' classic Sankofa film. And, we were youngsters in the mix, and it changed our lives. And one of the things that we knew was that, music and the arts, revolutionary, man. I mean, at the time, this is when, the year 2000 for me, it was very critical for me because Dead Prez album, Let's Get Free came out. Common, like Water for Chocolate came out. D'Angelo, Voodoo came out. Erykah Badu, Mama's Gun came out. And Things Fall Apart from the Roots came out like the previous year, but it was still running into 2000. And so I just remember those 5 albums were just in constant rotation. And I remember what it meant to us to be able to say, wow, like we could do this and say this on record, right? Like we can be, you could be a singer and have a last song on your album be called Africa. What? Like D'Angelo? Like, so we were thinking about all these ideas. And so I actually began recording music and doing music with my partner, Weldon, who was in that song 43. Shout out to Weldon Muriel. In like 04, 05, 06, so like from like 04 to like 2010, we had a whole mixtape run, bro. Like we was just doing shows. In fact, back to Brother Umar, Dr. Umar, I first met him at the annual UNIA Garvey Parade that was held in front of the UNIA on 16th Street, CB1 Avenue to 17th Street. He was one of the speakers. I believe I spoke, and me and Weldon, I think, performed, I want to say. And so even like back then, there was this attitude of like, yo, how do we fuse the music and the arts? And so we sort of, I won't say approach the group up because we're like best friends. So like we just stopped making music together, right? Probably about 5 years ago. Life happens. And so he would do like verses now and again with me on songs that I would do. And so last year, for instance, he said, yo, man, I'm about to turn 43. We're about to turn 43. Let's just do a song talking about where we've been, as a group, also as Black men. And that's how the song came about. But more importantly, to my journey with music, when I began releasing some of this more recent EP music, like in 2020, 2021, 2022, it really came from my process of trying to maintain a sense of self with the work, right? People ask all the time, hey, Brother Gabe, how do you find time to go to the studio with the work and Mumia and Move and, Police Brutality and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, you know what? Honestly, at this stage of my life, I can't do that work without doing this. In other words, the art and the creativity and being up at midnight writing a verse and hearing beats and all that kind of stuff allows me just to like to exhale a little bit and to like work a different side of my brain, if that makes sense. And then wake up in the morning, get to the studio, do a song. And that just creative sort of journey allows me to then tap back into the work, which is always ever present anyway. So that's really been good for me, just from like a health perspective, but also just to kind of get some energy out and things that I know that I want to say along the way. But also with the media, with the films, I knew since COVID, we were doing these programs in the community around Black men and boys and different issues, right? So I lead an initiative focusing on men's, it's men of color, right? So it's Black folk, it's Black men, it's Latino men, and our health and wellness. And we will often do them in spaces, right? We would do them in churches, houses of faith, rec centers, community-based organizations, whatever. Once COVID hit, it was like, yo, we can't do these in-person town halls anymore. And so, me, I'm always the visionary. So I was like, well, what if we record other stories, And then I went further and said, well, why don't we just do a film about it so that it can be more enticing to the viewer and to our audiences, so that we can really make it more profound. And so we were able to do 3 films that I'm very proud of. One focuses on men talking about the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. One focusing on the relationship between fathers and sons, which Brother Shamari is in. So we know Brother Shamari. And one focusing on, most recent one focusing on gun violence and traumas of gun violence. And all of them are all about like, what can we do, our own personal story, and really about the importance of story. I really it's all about our tradition. At the end of the day, I'm always going to invoke our tradition in the work. And so all of them are from the concept of the jelly or the so-called griot, as far as how do we tell our own story in a way and tell a story that can be compelling to promote and to provoke thought, but also action. In this case, is health and wellness.
Yeah. All right, let's tell the family where they can connect with you. But I want you to leave us with some wisdom, whatever it is that's on your heart to share.
No doubt.
And also, just for my own selfish reasons, like where do you see with the production, like down the road, where's the vision? Like, where do you? Because once you get that bug, bro,
Bruh.
Once you get that camera, and you
heavy.
tell so many stories to
No
tell.
question. No question.
So
No
many
question.
stories. So tell me, like, what stories are you most looking forward to telling in the future? Leave us with some wisdom, and also tell folks who can connect with
so
you.
I'll do the latter, and then go back to some, I guess, closing remarks. If somebody would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be doing film and stuff, I'd be like, I'm just too focused on this, that, and the third. But what's cool about it is that, undergrad, my major was in journalism and my minor was in political science. So a lot of these issues are kind of, again, coming together at the end of the day, in a beautiful manner. I hope to actually write scripts. I got a lot of concepts for some documentaries I think would be quite compelling to tell. Some are based in Philly as far as an idea. Some are a bit more national in scope. But I definitely had the bug, because having seen the process of like the editing and going through hours of footage and then being able to cut this, that, and the third, and figuring out a narrative arc and what do we want to actually tell the listener, the viewer, right? That's really got me, thinking. I love movies myself. I watch them all the time. And I've learned a lot of the stories that I want to tell that will uplift our Black experience, but also do it in a real radical way, because there's a need for that, right? I mean, I love our Black content, but I'm always in search of content that's going to speak more towards our sense of liberation, into winning, right, into freedom, in a real way. So I have some thoughts about that can be, hopefully they'll come in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm gonna get myself. But then let's close some thoughts, man. First of all, again, thank you, brother, for this time. Being able to share brother to brother is good. I remember those times when you was coming to the RBG Fridays, and I remember when you said, "Hey, Gabe, I gotta write this letter to you and I." And you drafted this epic, response, which I won't get into, but that was an epic moment as well in history. I would argue. And I remember, me, you, and V talking about it, but all praise is due to the folks for UNA and the legacy of UNA for sure. But I would just say this, man. The work has to continue, family. We find ourselves in very, devastating times. Prior to COVID, since COVID, beyond COVID, for centuries, since we find ourselves on this side of the world, even though many of us were already here, it's just been an onslaught of unmasked terrorism. And there's a lot of youngsters who are looking to us with, as my old head says, wide eyes and wide ears. They're listening to us and they're watching us, whether we know it or not. And so every time something happens in our community, every time, a food apartheid and the food desert and the grocery store shuts down, every time a Germantown High School or a uni closes down, every time, a Black man or somebody gets shot down on the street and there's no response, every time, there's a school gets locked down and there's asbestos in the school, and all these times, and there's no response from the elders that they look up to, they process that, and they're going to grow up and they're going to grow up into adults who don't care. They're going to grow up into adults who are apathetic. They're going to grow up into adults who are disconnected, whether you want to believe that or not. And so, what Kwame Ture always taught us was join an organization or build one, but really find one, right? I always say find one, because we got enough. We got enough of them out here. Think about how you could have some deliberate conversation to figure out how you can join one, and figure out a way to contribute. I think that we've gone away from organizing a lot. There's a lot of individual work happening. And what I'm noticing also is that a lot of individuals are becoming jaded and bitter because their individual work has been compromised, or their individual work isn't bringing about the solutions or the progress that they desired. And I always try to tell those folks, family, if you had a whole team of you might be able to do things a lot more efficient and a lot more, just get things done, as opposed to like one man ganging it everywhere, So just think about building your team out. But really also, man, if I could just close by saying this, man, one thing that we haven't done, and I'm going to try to do much better in 2023, it's really returned us back to a sense of some strong, rigorous PE, political education. I think in many ways due to the nature of how we do. In other words, it should be a both and. We can do the podcasting, we can do the visuals and videos. I love everybody that's doing it and creating content. But I think for some, I would say younger people and new people in movement work, they've utilized the content creation more so than the rigorous study, right? And my position, really is take in these videos, right? Continue to support our brother Omowale. Watch each and every, day that you can watch it and visit it, watch it live, right? But also, as you're doing that, pick up those books that you see next to him. There's a reason why brother Omowale has those key canon books next to him, because he's also sending a message for you to pick up Yorugu, right? For him to pick up, Malcolm X and all the books listed there, right? Like, we need to return back to that rigorous study in PE, because a lot of our answers have already been defined for us. We just got to apply them.
That's a bomb. All right, Brother Gabe, tell the folks where they can find you at, how they connect. We're going to tap out.
Yes, sir. Again, peace and black power, peace and black power, peace and black power. You can just reach me at Good Brother Gabe on Instagram. That's Good Brother Gabe. Brother is ER, not A. But at Good Brother Gabe, GABE on Instagram. Hit me up, follow me, tap in. Let's get to work.
All right, y'all. Listen, do me a favor.
Yo, check this out. Run my Uncle Omowale his likes.
Y'all just pulling up. Go ahead and smack that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go follow my brother Gabe, and we out. Peace.
Peace and love.
Going off topic.
Off topic.
You really off topic right now. Yo, you way off topic. How is it that everybody's over here and you way over there off topic?